two of these, Cynthia. Alright, the first two of these should have been very similar to what we did during third period today. So really what I've just tried to do is give you a couple of these to give us a snapshot of how you did with it. The second two are a little different, but I hope after doing one of these examples, you'll be able to see that it's really not any different than the first two. Okay? Now, if possible, I'll do each of these two different ways. Sometimes there's not going to be possible to do two different ways because you can't do any reducing. So what we talked about during the third period today was, when it comes to multiplying fractions, you multiply the numerators, you multiply the denominators. Again, I'm going to just get in the habit of saying, we're going to just multiply straight across. So when I multiply straight across here, we're going to have 5 times 3, which is going to give us 15. And on the bottom, I'm going to take 4 times 8, which is going to give us 32. Again, remember, we're taught, it specifically said, we're not worried about finding the common denominator. All you're going to do is make more problems than it's what it's worth. Okay? Multiplying fractions, just multiply straight across. Now, can I reduce 15 over 32? Are there any common factors here? No. No, that's it. Now, if you tried to reduce in the original problem, 5 over 8 can't be reduced. 3 over 4 can't be reduced. 3 and 8 cannot be reduced. 5 and 4 cannot be reduced. That's where you're all looking. None of those can be reduced, so my final answer cannot be reduced. Now, as I walked around, some people go, well, but I can reduce 8 and 4. You can't reduce anything if they're both on the bottom or if they're both on the top. You need one of those to be on the top, and you need one of those to be on the bottom. Alright, now, number 2. Again, if we were to just multiply straight across, we've got a negative here with our second fraction. Let's throw that up there with the top number. So we're going to multiply 14 times negative 3, which is going to leave us with negative 42. And on the bottom, we're going to take 25 times 7, which should give us 175. Now again, these are large numbers. It may take us a little bit to identify numbers that go into both of those. 42 and 175, though, happen to both be divisible by 7. So if I multiply or divide negative 42 by 7, that gives me negative 6. 175 divided by 7 gives me 25. Do 6 and 25 have any common factors? No. That's going to make this my final answer then. Now, if we chose to do this the other way that we talked about, where we'd reduce before we'd multiply, can I reduce 14 and 25? No. Can I reduce 3 and 7? No. Can I reduce 3 and 25? No. Can I reduce 14 and 7? Yes. Yes, they're both divisible by 7. So 14 divided by 7 would be 2. 7 divided by 7 would be 1. Now, when I go ahead and multiply straight across, 2 times negative 3 is negative 6. 25 times 1 is 25. There is my reduced answer. Again, I'm not going to tell you one way or the other, but I think for most students, reducing prior to multiplying keeps the number smaller, makes it easier to reduce. Now, number 3. The biggest issue that I see with this problem is people go, I don't know how to multiply a fraction by a whole number. Well, that's fine. Do you know how to multiply a fraction in a fraction? I hope so. So how can you change 4 into a fraction, Megan? Just put a 1 on the bottom of it. That's all you got to do is put a 1 on the bottom of it. Now you have a fraction times a fraction. Let's keep our phone away, please. Now, when I multiply negative 8 times 4, that's going to leave me with negative 32 over 9 times 1, which is 9. Do negative 32 and 9 have any common factors? No. There's my final answer right here. So again, if I'm doing an operation with a whole number, whether that's multiplication or division as we look at it tomorrow, you can always change a whole number into a fraction by simply putting it over 1. Alright? So same thing in problem number 4. Now, if I change this 18 to an 18 over 1, and I chose to multiply first, 18 times 1 is 18. 1 times 3 is 3. Now, something we've talked about, and we need to continue to discuss this in case it comes up on your checks. Don't write a number as a fraction unless it has to be. Nope. What's 18 divided by 3? Don't write it as a fraction. Some people write it as 6 over 1. 6 over 1 does not need to be written as a fraction. It can just be written as 6. I am going to count it wrong because in my book that is not reduced. And I know some people are like, well, that's really picky because 6 over 1 is 6. I agree. But when you guys write 3, you write 3, don't you? You don't write 3 over 1. Because 3 is the simplified answer. No need in using a fraction unless a fraction is required for us to write it. If the answer is a whole number, then we will just leave it as a whole number. Alright, so hopefully that was some quick, easy review from third period today with a little bit of extra because, again, we didn't talk about how to multiply by a whole number. Alright, so we're to the back page of our notes today. Again, if you threw these at the bottom of your 5.5 notes, just flip it over. We're going to the back page, and we're talking about mixed numbers. Now, just like when we added and subtracted mixed numbers, our rules are not going to change. Okay? The same way you multiply mixed numbers is the same way as that you multiply any fractions. But in order for those rules to apply, what's the first thing we have to do with all mixed numbers? Change them to impropers. That literally is the only difference. So if you read at the top of your notes, it says to multiply mixed numbers, change them to improper fractions. Then multiply the numerators and denominators. Always check to see if the answer is written in simplest form. That's it. Like, this should be to the point where we just understand mixed numbers need to be rewritten as improper fractions for us to work with them. Okay? And as the check that I'm grading, I'm through almost all of your guys's. Okay? The check that I'm grading from earlier, I'm very comfortable with where we're at changing mixed numbers into improper fractions. Okay? We're just going to continue to practice that. So, if I want to multiply these together, 3 times 7 plus 2 is going to give me what? Use your calculators, everyone. We're changing this to a mixed number, or improper. 7 times 3 plus 2 is 23. Over 3. We're going to multiply this by, let's change 2.5 to an improper. What is that going to be? It's going to be 5 over 3, or 5 over 2. Now, I'm not going to do each of these all the different ways. I'm just going to practice reducing. Can I reduce 23 over 3? No. Can I reduce 5 over 2? No. Can I reduce 23 and 2? Yeah. No. Can I reduce 5 and 3? No. So if I can't reduce any of that, then I know I can't reduce my final answer. So we would just multiply across. I'm going to take 23 times 5, which is 115 over 3 times 2, which is 6. There's my final answer. Again, if I know that I can't reduce any of the 4 numbers in the original problem, then I know that that is also going to be my final answer when I multiply them together. Okay? Now, letter B, we got this negative in front of here. So again, let's be careful with that. When we have a negative in our mixed number, what do we do when we start to change it to an improper? Ignore the negative. So we're going to take 4 times 2 plus 3. What's that going to be? 11. Over 4. Then we'll bring our negative back into this. We're going to multiply this by 3 times 5 plus 1, which is 16 over 3. I'm going to work on reducing. Can I reduce 11 and 4? No. 16 and 3? No. 11 and 3? No. 4 and 6? Yes. Or sorry, 4 and 16. They're both divisible by 4. So when I take 4 divided by 4, this is 1. 16 divided by 4 is 4. Now that's all I can reduce. So if we multiply negative 11 times 4, that leaves us with a negative 44 over 1 times 3, which is 3. And again, I don't care if that negative is in front, on top, on bottom, we're going to end up with a negative 44 thirds. Okay, if you wanted to multiply first, what is that, 11 times negative, or negative 11? That'd be a negative 176 over 12. But then you'd have to reduce that by dividing everything by 4. Alright, letter C. Letter C, we're going to see that they threw in a whole number. Okay, well, we've kind of already practiced this earlier. We know that we can change this whole number into a fraction by putting it over 1. But we also need to take 5 2/9 and change this as well. So, 9 times 5 plus 2, 47 over 9 times, again, we're going to make this a 6 over 1. Now, can we reduce 47 and 9? No. And here's the thing. I'm going to tell you, the only way you'd be able to reduce this is if you could reduce 2 over 9. Can I reduce 2 over 9? No. So this isn't going to be able to be reduced either. Okay? 6 over 1 could technically just become 6, but I want to make that into a fraction right now. So I can't reduce this. I could reduce this. Can I reduce 47 and 1? No. What about 9 and 6? Yes, because 9 and 6 are both divisible by 3. So if I take 9 divided by 3, we're going to get 3. 6 divided by 3 gives us 2. So now as we go through and multiply across, we're taking 47 times 2, which would be 94 over 3 times 1, which is going to give us 3. All right, you guys try example D. Negative 4 3/8 times a negative 1 3/5. All right, so here's one of the first things that we want to be thinking about when we get done. We're finding the product of two negatives. Positive. My answer needs to be a positive. Okay? If it's not a positive when I get done, then I know that I've done something incorrectly here. Okay? Again, we're going to ignore the negative. So what are we going to rewrite 4 3/8 as? 35 over 8. And then we'll bring our negative back into this. Okay? Times 1 3/5 is what? 8 over 5. And we'll bring our negative back into this. Okay? What's that? Now, Let's do some reducing. I can't reduce 35 over 8. I can't reduce 8 over 5. But my 8s can be reduced because they're both divisible by 8. So 8 divided by 8 is 1. Negative 8 divided by 8 is negative 1. 35 and 5 can both be reduced. They're both divisible by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. Negative 35 divided by 5 is negative 7. I have a lot of reducing that happened here. So now as I go to multiply across, negative 7 times negative 1 is 7 over 1 times 1, which is 1. And as we talked about in our opener, don't leave it as a fraction if it doesn't need to be. 7 divided by 1 is just 7. All right, questions on these?
So like, when we take the test on this burger, and we don't do it this way, we do it the other way.
It's 100% wrong. No, I'm kidding.
I'm just like, why would you say that? Because I don't like it.
No, I'm kidding. If you want to multiply first, so what would that give you? Like a negative 2
They get those 280 over.
or a positive 280 over 40? Yeah, that's still going to give you 7 when you reduce it. Just make sure that you show me how you reduce it. Maya, question? Okay, I'll be over and take a look at it here in just a minute.